Beliefs about vampires, werewolves, witches, and wizards are widespread.
Exactly what is a serial killer?
Our house was 2 rooms, and there was 7 of us.
He held the bat like this.
That's why I have characters who sort of expose themselves.
And everybody always say, Coach Carter, Samuel Jackson is taller than you. I said, I know, but I think I'm better looking.
I hope you are ready to have a little fun this morning and that you are ready to get your energy going here, ladies, because I'm going to bring it. And I don't know about you, I know we had a few people raising their hands that they're type A's, but I have a feeling there's some closet type A's in here too. Maybe you just didn't want to raise your hand. It's okay. We're friends here, folks. We're friends here today, okay? So I don't know about you. I was born a type A. I was like all the things, type everything, type all at once. I mean, God, even Lady Gaga says I was born this way, right? That was me. I got my first job when I was in 4th grade. I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz, in a professional theater company's production of The Wizard of Oz. I thought I was pretty cool. I got paid $150 to do 12 performances. And I was like off to the races. I'm like, this is kind of fun. I get paid to like do things that are pretty cool. I was off to the races after that. In junior high and high school, I was taking all honors classes. I was going to Italian at the local junior college because 4 years of French clearly wasn't enough. I was on varsity swim team. I was swimming on a club team. I was doing productions of theater. I had a job as a lifeguard and a swim instructor. I mean, all the things. And I'll never forget, I made the varsity swim team my freshman year in high school, which I thought I was pretty cool. And I even made it to the state championships the very first year. And coming from Southern California, that's kind of saying a lot, because if you watch the Olympics, like most of the swimmers are from like Florida or Southern California. So I thought I was so cool. And I remember my parents and I drove about an hour to this big stadium, this Olympic-sized pool, and I was so excited. I was like, I am a freshman. I am going to kill it here, folks. I am going to win this thing. So I am up there on the blocks. I had waited hours for my event, because if you have ever been to a swim meet, you know that these things, I see you nodding, these things take forever. You are there all day. So it was finally my turn. I was doing the 50-meter freestyle. I'm up on the blocks. I'm so excited. I'm adjusting my goggles, my swimsuit. I am like, focused, ready to roll, I'm gonna win. I dive in, the gun goes off, I dive in, and I am swimming for dear life. The 50-meter free, if you don't know, is a quick race. It's like the 100-meter dash in running. You just have to get to the other side. That's it. You just have to swim 1 lap and you're done. So you better go all out on that 1 lap, okay? I am swimming as fast as I can. I get a little water in my goggles, but I don't care. I don't need to see. I just need to hit the wall. So I'm going as fast as I can, hardly taking any strokes, hear the splash of the water, the roar of the crowd. I don't see anyone in front of me, and I'm like, I am winning. I'm freaking winning. I'm a freshman, and I'm winning this thing. And I get there, and I slam into the wall, stop the clock, and I look around, and I am the last person in the pool. I am the absolute last person in the pool. The reason I didn't see anyone in front of me was not because I was winning. It was because I was losing. And I was devastated. I was crushed. I got out, I fell into my parents' arms. I was crying like a little baby as a 9th grader, but I was so upset. And anybody looking in would have been able to tell that I was burnt out because I was stretched so thin. I don't know if you guys have ever felt that, where you're training and training and training and preparing so much for your big moment, and then you choke. Has that ever happened to you or somebody on your team, where you're like, oh my gosh, this is my moment to shine, and I'm just like dying on the vine? And you'd think I would have learned my lesson back in 1995 at the state championship, but no. I just kept carrying on. I thought, no, it must be a bad day. Burnout wasn't really a thing back then, and if it was, sure as hell didn't apply to me. I was way too cool for that. And so I just kept carrying on. All through high school, taking tons of classes, college, graduating early, always doing the summer internships, always trying to do more. I climbed the corporate ladder, and this all culminated in spending the last 6 years heading up marketing for the largest healthcare staffing company in the country. I know we got some healthcare peeps in here. Woo woo! Yes, you know what we've been through these last few years. It has been a whirlwind. So I headed up marketing for the largest healthcare staffing company in the country. We were this hyper-growth company. We grew 27x in the 6 years I was there. We went from having 4,000 clinicians to having over 50,000 in the span of a couple years. We continued to win every single award under the sun for being a best place to work. And all the while, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my moment to shine. We're doing great work to staff hospitals during the pandemic, saving lives, putting nurses on the front lines. And I was like, yes, finally, I'm here. This is my moment to shine in all my overachiever type A glory. And at the same time, I had so many other things happening in my life. I mean, we were working around the clock. How many of you guys worked around the clock during the pandemic? Yeah, it was a nightmare, right? I see you. Yes. Working just around the clock, constantly on Zoom calls. I was accidentally fasting, which is kind of like intermittent fasting, but with more meetings. Yeah. You know when you just don't eat all day and you're like, oh, well, I guess we're fasting today. My nutritionist says this is good for my gut health, but hey, there we go. It was terrible. And all of these, at the same time, all of this stress and this pressure in my job were happening. I also had so much going on in my personal life. My husband's dad got diagnosed with cancer and died during this time. We couldn't hold a funeral or see him because of the pandemic. I know a few of you had that same situation. His mom was also diagnosed with cancer at this time. We had to put our 14-year-old dog down. It was just one thing after another. And I started to kind of lose my grip a little bit. Things started to get a little foggy. I wasn't quite being myself. And what's crazy is I didn't actually think burnout was real. I still didn't think burnout was real after all these years. I thought it was something that happened to weak people, lazy people, those people, not high achievers like you and I. Not people that come to events like this to better ourselves and network and meet people and schmooze and do all the things. No, I was like, you're burnt out? Like when? Go take a nap. Sort yourself out, girl. Ain't nobody got time to be burnt out, right? Nobody has time for that. I had no sympathy. I was like, get your life together and come back and talk to me, okay? And at this time, all of these things started happening to me. I was like zoning out, sitting at my desk on conference calls, just aimlessly scrolling Amazon or Instagram, buying more crap I certainly didn't need. My husband was like, is it Christmas? Like, why does stuff keep showing up at our house? I'm like, well, I'm bored. I'm burnt out. I'd be on conference calls just zoning out. Emails would come in and I would just forward them on to one of the 75 people on my team, never to think about them again. I was not delegating. I was straight up abdicating all of my responsibility as the head of marketing. The best were those group emails. You know when you've got like 10 people copied in on an email? I was like, someone else will deal with it. I don't feel like dealing with this. There's 10 people on the email. Someone will deal with it. I'm not going to do it. And I'll never forget, at some point, I was reduced to a mouse jiggle. Any of you guys done the mouse jiggle? Where you're like sitting at your desk and you're there, but you're not really there. So you just sort of jiggle your mouse every now and then to make sure that it looks like you're active on Teams. Yeah. I see you. I see you. I was the queen of the mouse jiggle. You know, you want your team to make sure you're still active. You want your boss to make sure you're still active, but you're not there. You're freaking scrolling Instagram. You just jiggle your mouse every day. Maybe push the space bar, you know? And that was me, this person who's always been motivated and driven and fired up to do things. And it didn't take long for people to notice this either. My boss actually called me up and asked me if I wanted to resign because I was just phoning it in. And the reality is he was right. What I didn't realize was all these years I had been dead wrong. Burnout actually is a thing, and I was in it. And there was no amount of yoga or acupuncture. There wasn't enough green juice on the planet to get me out of this burnout that I was in. I couldn't just work my way out of it. I actually had to make some changes. I had to change my mindset. I had to change my behaviors, my thoughts. It wasn't just a matter of, oh, I'll take a yoga class. I mean, I'll meditate. That's the best, right? Well, I'll just do some morning journaling and I'll be set, right? It doesn't work like that. I knew I had to make some changes in my life. And I don't want you to have to go through what I went through until you start to make some of those changes. Because I had fallen into this thing I call the type A trap. All of the things that make us successful in our life. The hustle, the grind, the work, the grit, the long hours, the going to the conferences and events, the taking the classes, getting the certifications. All of those things that make us successful are also the very things that cause us to burn out. And so the question's really, how do we get to this level of peak performance without burning out? Especially when burnout is sneaky. It tiptoes up on you over time. Before you know it, you're in it. Think about it. When you start gaining weight, you notice, right? Like your pants are just a little bit tighter, the jacket's a little bit harder to button, the sleeves are a little bit tighter. We notice. It's like, okay, lay off the booze, get the salad instead of the French fries, have one less glass of Sauvignon Blanc. You know, we can notice that and we can start making some changes. The problem with burnout is we don't really notice it until it's too late. It can start small, and seemingly insignificant, like unnecessary road rage. I am from Southern California. I know about road rage. If you do not start your car the second that light turns green, I'm like, boop, courtesy honk, like, let's go, lady. Move it along, move it along. I am swearing under my breath at you. I never flip the bird, though. I'm a lady, okay? But I might be saying some terrible things to you in my car. Unnecessary road rage. Maybe it's snapping at your partner, right? The people we live with often get the brunt of it because we're frustrated, we're exhausted, we're annoyed, and we just verbally unload on them. Maybe it's missing deadlines, zoning out during those conference calls. If we're not careful, it can lead to exhaustion, it can lead to depression, anxiety, high blood pressure, and if we're really not careful, it can lead to serious things like heart attacks, cancer diagnoses, miscarriages, divorce, getting fired. There's no shortage of ways that burnout touches us. It can affect almost every single area of our lives. But what the problem is we don't notice it until it's too late. We think we're just a little tired, and we're like, oh, I didn't really sleep that well last night. Okay, I guess I'll go to bed early tonight. But when you keep going to bed early and you keep waking up at 3 a.m. with your mind racing and you're still absolutely exhausted, there's some changes that need to be made. And maybe you've felt some of these things too. I know we've got a whole smorgasbord of different industries and people in here at all different levels of your career. But maybe you've felt some of these things. Maybe you are struggling with budget cuts at your organization and you're having to wear multiple hats. And as women, let's be real, we gotta wear a lot of hats, right? And you've got a cute one on, look at that, whoop. Only person in here with a hat on, I love that. Way to stand out, girl. Yes, so we wear so many different hats. We're pulled in a million different directions. Maybe you are struggling to hire and retain great talent. Maybe you're dealing with a massive staffing shortage. Maybe, like I said, you've got budget cuts. Maybe you're trying to find some semblance of balance between work and life. Can I get an amen on that? Yes, it's so hard to find that balance. There's no shortage of ways that you've been tested and that you continue to be tested. But yet I have a feeling there's so many of you that kept showing up like I did, this bright, happy person pretending to have it all together, but slowly crumbling inside, slowly having pieces of your personal life just deteriorate while you're trying to keep it all together. And if that feels like you're not alone. Look at any news station, and we're still seeing story after story about people being burnt out. 52% of all workers are still burnt out. 69% say that they're not engaged. That was me. I quietly quit for a good 6 months before I was able to pull myself out of this black hole. And I'd love to know, how is burnout showing up in your life? I'd love to know. Shout them out, either in your life or in your team's life. I've mentioned a few ways it showed up in mine, some of the warning signs. What are you guys seeing? What are you feeling? There are no wrong answers. Frustration. Yeah, I was frustrated, that's for sure. Exhaustion, yes. Health challenges, yeah. Sadly, that's the one that normally gets us. We think we're fine, and then it's like, oh, I've got kidney stones. Or, it's like, surprise. Or something even worse. I mean, like, thankfully we survived kidney stones, but like, yeah, health challenges. What else? Kids acting out, yeah. Not getting enough attention, feeling neglected, frustrated, mom's not doing what she's supposed to. Yeah, mom guilt, I hear you. Projects not completed, yeah. Or team members just zoning out, forgetting about deadlines. What else? Complacency, yeah, that was me. I was like, I don't care. Yeah, did marketing, there'd be some PR problem. I'm like, whoops. Did not care. Totally disengaged. No wonder my boss called and asked me if I wanted to resign, right? I was like, sorry, buddy. Yes, there's no shortage of ways that this keeps showing up in our life. And so the question I always ask is, how do we stay at this level of peak performance without burning out? Because I don't know about you, I still want to continue to achieve and kick butt and thrive at the highest levels. I know you do too. But I want to do it in a way where I'm not killing myself along the way or ruining my relationships or my health. So, as I mentioned this morning, I've interviewed and surveyed thousands of high achievers, people from all different walks of life, Guinness World Record holder for World's Strongest Man, leading doctors, diplomats, retired Navy SEAL captains, just people from all different walks of life who have all reached the highest levels of success after burning out themselves. And all of them shared really similar tools that they use to prevent and overcome burnout. So what you have to look forward to the next hour of our time together here, or probably 45 minutes now, we're going to talk about decoding our flow. How do we get laser focused on how we spend our time? We're going to talk about pivoting like a pro and make sure that the path that we're on is a path we actually want to be on. And lastly, we're going to talk about slowing down to speed up and cultivating a mental health toolkit that we can put to use whenever you want. So if you don't feel like taking notes, don't worry, I got you. At the end, I will have a QR code. It leads to a resource page on my website. I've got a burnout pop quiz on there that measures like 6 different areas of your life so you can see kind of where you are. I know it can be a little scary, but better to know, right? It checks your burnout. I've got a mental health toolkit, a burnout toolkit, some forms that you can use with your teams, all sorts of fun stuff up there, so I got you. Okay, so let's dive in. So step number 1 is decode your flow. As motivated, driven achievers, we think we can do and achieve everything, right? Because we're willing to put in the hard yards. We're willing to put in the time necessary. But this focus and this insistence on mastering everything no matter what and doing it all ourselves, because God forbid we ask for help, right? Doing it all ourselves, it drags us down. It makes us exhausted, and it just feeds into burnout. So this first mindset shift is, instead of mastering everything no matter what, we've got to be able to have strict and methodical selection of how we actually spend our time. Because contrary to popular belief, life is not supposed to be miserable. It's supposed to be fun, right? If we're not having fun, what's the point? What is the point of doing all this if we're not having fun? So how do we get laser focused on how we spend our time? A company called Hootsuite, which is a big popular social media management platform, they had an interesting story on decoding their flow. So Noel was one of their directors of technology, And he had just gotten off the phone with a new prospect, and he wanted to send them a few t-shirts. Nothing fancy, just a boring t-shirt with a Hootsuite logo on it. Nothing to write home about here, folks. Wanted to send them some of these t-shirts, just as a little thank you. You know, he's excited about working together. Goes down to the marketing department and asks them for the t-shirts. Marketing department says, well, we need your manager's approval. He's like, well, my manager's the chief technology officer. Like, he's got better things to do than approve a couple t-shirts. Like, can't I just have the shirts? Nope, sorry, that's the rule. We're sticking to it. We need your manager's approval. Of course, the chief technology officer is nowhere to be found. So he gets frustrated. Noel goes into the CEO's office and says, listen, dude, we got to have a better system. Like, this is a ridiculous process. What is the worst that happens? We have a few more t-shirts out in the world? Like, is this really going to break the bank? Well, it turns out the CEO didn't even realize that this process was still in place. It was something that they put in place back when they were like a small little startup where every single stamp mattered, every paper clip mattered. They didn't want to waste any money. But nobody was in charge of this process. So what happens when you have a process that no one's in charge of? You'll just sit around and complain about it, right? That's what we did at my company. We're just, hated this process. Everyone complained about it. Nobody did anything about it. So they decided they were going to start a new role called the Czar of Bad Systems. Who'd like a czar of bad systems in their organization? Or their personal life, for that matter. I could use one in my personal life, right? The Czar of Bad Systems was a new role. Noel took it on with his additional role, his current role. And the whole process was to just streamline cumbersome processes and outdated processes throughout the organization. Because with nobody actually in charge of fixing them, nothing happens. They just continue to progress, they continue to function, and it just slows everyone down. So by doing this, Noel was able to streamline processes throughout the entire organization so that people could actually focus on things that were fun, that were productive and profitable, instead of slowing them down and dragging them down. I did something similar in my own personal life by decoding how I do virtual presentations. How many of you guys work from home? Yeah, quite a few of you. Kind of, I got you. I'll take that as part-time. Part-time from home, yeah. And so you know that it can be tricky having like a background that looks pretty decent. So my husband and I had recently moved, and my office was not that cute. And we live in San Diego, which is so dang expensive that I live in like a shack, you know? Like, it's about all we could afford. So my office wasn't that cute. But I'm on so many Zoom calls, I'm on so many, I do a lot of these as like virtual presentations. I gotta have a legit background. So I was constantly reorganizing the whole house every time I had a virtual presentation. I'm getting lamps from the living room, lamps from the spare bedroom. I'm putting up random stuff on the bookshelves behind me to make sure it looked cute. It was a nightmare. Every single time I had to do one of these virtual presentations, the whole house was a disaster. Then I had to put all the crap back because otherwise we'd have no light anywhere. This was not working for me, okay? It was not working for me. So I finally asked one of my friends who's a speaker, and she had this like amazing background, and I was like, how long did it take you to figure out all the like bookshelves and the lighting, and you've got your book on that table, and that looks cute? She's like, it's a fabric background. I was like, stop it. It looked so real. She's like, no, look. She's like poking it like this, and it's just like waving, you know? I was like, where the hell did you get that? I need this in my life. Turns out there's a company, write it all down, folks, Escape Your Space, if you wanna, I get nothing out of this, I have no partnership with them, they just saved my life. So all they do is create these backgrounds that look freaking amazing, and I didn't have to stress anymore. So I decoded my flow at home so that my life was just easier. These sound like small little things, but it's these things that stress us out and drag us down and annoy us and make us more prone to burnout. So think through, how can you decode your flow in your own life? A lot of times it means asking for help. So often we don't want to ask for help because we're women and we think we can do everything ourselves. But also, So often, if you've reached a certain stage in your career, maybe you think like, gosh, I should know how to do this by now. Like, how embarrassing. I got a team, they're all looking at me for answers. Like, I should know how to do this. It's embarrassing. We don't want to ask for help. But the study out of Stanford shows that people are 68% happier when they actually help others. So we're actually denying people the joy of helping us by not asking for their help. So how can we cultivate a group of people that can help us in areas where maybe we're struggling in a little bit? So ask yourself a couple questions. Where can you decode your flow today? Whether that's at work, like the Zara Bad Systems, or at home, how I decoded my flow with my virtual presentations. Maybe it's as simple as like you've got a really janky drawer in your kitchen. And it's just, I live in an old house, so I got plenty of janky drawers. But like, maybe it's just like a janky drawer that annoys you every time you have to try and get it open. Like, can you fix that? And like, your life would feel so much happier. Like, these sound like small little things, but they really make a difference. And then also think through, like, who can help you? Who are those people in your life that are good at that thing that you need help at? Ask them. People love to talk about themselves. Let them. Let them talk about themselves. Let them help you, right? Okay, so step number 1, decode your flow. Step number 2 is pivot like a pro. As motivated achievers, again, we think we can do everything. We set our sights on a goal, and come hell or high water, we will figure out a way to make it happen. Doesn't matter what happens along the way, what stumbling blocks we get, we will figure out a way to make it happen. But sometimes we are so focused and fixated on this goal that we forget why we're even doing it, and maybe even realize, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, why am I still working so hard for something I don't even really want to do? And so often we think of quitting as something bad, and failure as something bad, and a waste of time. But we have to start thinking about quitting as like a forward-looking problem, not a backward-looking one. It's not worth our time to waste $1 more or 1 more minute doing something that we don't even want to do anymore. So how can we get a little bit more agile and learn how to pivot? Instead of staying the course no matter what, being destination focused, being able to pivot and move with agility. There's this great study out of Harvard called the Personal Envy Lab. And I love this study because so often we're told that envy is a bad thing. We shouldn't compare ourselves to other people. Envy's bad, it's not good. Heck, if you're Catholic, it's one of the 7 deadly sins, right? Like, it's not supposed to be a good thing. But this study turns that on its head. It says, no, envy is great. Envy should be seen as data on what we value. So if you're envious of somebody, I don't know about you, but my envy comes out when I'm doing the old doom scrolling on Instagram. When you're envious of somebody, there's a reason why. They've got something that you want. They have the life, the career, the partner, the house, the body, the vacations, whatever it is. They've got something that you want. How can you use that envy as data on what you value to make a small pivot in your life? To use it as the catalyst for change for that next iteration of yourself or of your career. Now, these pivots don't have to be huge 180s to get yourself out of a rut. Unless you're my dad who says, I like to get in a good rut and stay there. He's like 80 years old. He's like, I've pivoted enough. Carry on. He's like, carry on. You guys pivot. I'm in a good rut right here. I'm going to stay right here, folks. Yeah, he is full of one-liners. So he loves it. He stays in these ruts. We don't have to make these huge, massive pivots. You don't have to quit your job and go become a marine biologist, okay? I don't know why that's always the choice. How many of you in high school were like, I'm going to be a marine biologist? Yeah, that's always the thing. It's always the thing that people choose, right? Cracks me up. But yet most people probably don't know a single marine biologist, so go figure. So how many of you guys have a Stanley mug? I know I saw a couple on the tables out here. Yeah, bunch of Stanleys. And I think somebody's actually giving one away back there too. Yes, so for 109 years, Stanley has been making insulated thermoses and mugs in every shade as long as it was some version of Army green. I can still see my dad's like dirt-stained hands from working in the yard, taking off the lid, sipping coffee out of the lid. Coffee he made like 4 hours ago, but it's still piping hot because it's been in his Stanley mug. I can still see that today. So Terrence Riley is their president. He started back in 2020, the beginning of 2020. Surprise! Bad time to start a new job. So he started his job at the beginning of 2020. Not long after he started getting emails from these girls from a website called The Buy Guide. And he was like, what the heck is this? Who are these blogger chicks? Like, I don't have time for this. I'm a busy CEO. Delete. We don't have time for this. But these girls were persistent. They just kept emailing and emailing and emailing and emailing. Finally, he was like, well, maybe I'll just open one of these emails and see what the heck they want. Turns out they wanted these, the Quencher mugs. 40 ounces, has the straw, has the handle. Most importantly, it fits in your cup holder. So when you've got the road rage like I do, when you slam on your brakes and all your crap falls on the ground, your cup doesn't fall on the ground, you're good? Yeah, they wanted these. And he couldn't figure out why, because he's like, we haven't really been putting much production behind them. We haven't been putting much marketing behind them. Like, why do they want these mugs? Well, it turns out the girls had randomly stumbled upon them, put them up on their website, and they sold out, and now they couldn't find them anywhere. They weren't on eBay, they weren't on Amazon, like they weren't anywhere. And for 109 years, they had been appealing, Stanley, to this really outdoorsy, adventurous, very male, REI shopping guy, not women in this room. And so Terrence couldn't figure this out. And so the girls just kept calling. They finally got his phone number. He was like, great, now they got my number. How the hell am I gonna get rid of these people? Finally agrees to take their phone call just to get rid of them. He's like, maybe if I just talk to them for 5 minutes, they'll leave me alone. These girls convinced Terrence to sell them 5,000 of these mugs. They put them up on their website and they sell out in 2 days. He was shocked. They get 5,000 more. They put them up on the website again. They sell out almost instantly again. Well, this piqued Terrence's interest. He's like, maybe we should be putting a little bit more marketing budget towards these. Maybe we should be doing more with production. So this all kind of came to a head. He invited the girls to their corporate offices in Seattle, and the girls showed them the tens of thousands of social media posts of young 20 to 30-something-year-old women were posing with their Stanley mugs, not their traditional stale male and pale men from REI that are usually buying the mugs. No, women using these mugs, and his mind was exploding. To this day, they now have tens of thousands of people on their waiting list. They create custom, unique colors in limited quantities and limited editions every single month. They resell on sites like Poshmark for over $100, and the sales of this one mug have gone up over 275% in 1 year. This pivot is incredible because they're still doing the same thing they've always done, making high-quality insulated thermoses and mugs. They're not making handbags and shoes and magic markers. No, they're still doing the same thing. They're just now appealing to a whole new demographic of women who like to shop. So Terrence was lucky. He had these girls tapping on his shoulder, telling him it was time for a pivot. Who's tapping on your shoulder? What client? What customer? What colleague? What competitor? Who's tapping on your shoulder saying, maybe it's time for a little bit of a change, a little bit of a pivot? Most importantly, who's tapping inside of you? What's that thing that's tapping inside of you? That thing that you just keep ignoring, you keep pushing down, you keep forgetting about, putting second. What's that thing inside of you that's tapping, that's telling you it's time to make a little bit of a pivot? So ask yourself a couple questions to find out if it's time to make a pivot. First question is, what are you making jokes about? Jokes are just jokes until they're not. So if your boss or your weight or your partner is the butt of every single joke, maybe take that as a sign that it's time for a little bit of a pivot. And this includes when people ask you how you're doing and you just say, oh, you know, living the dream. You are not living the dream. You are decidedly not living the dream if that is your answer. Take that as a sign it's time for a little pivot. Or who or what do you envy? Who are those people, those things that you envy, and how can you use that as energy to make a small pivot? The answers to these questions will help us realize it may be time for a pivot, because we want to make sure that the roads we're on are roads we actually want to be on, roads that serve us, roads that make us happy, roads that lead us to somewhere we actually want to still go. So we can make a change. I'm giving you permission to make a small pivot. So step number 2, pivot like a pro. Our last step is to slow down to speed up. And this can be the hardest one for me because, as you can tell, I have a lot of energy, much to my husband's dismay. And I am not good at slowing down. I get FOMO, but it's not fear of missing out on a brunch with friends or an outing. In fact, most of the time I just want to stay home anyways. It's fear that it's going to take me even longer to accomplish that thing that I want to accomplish. I don't want to slow down. I don't want to stop because it's going to take me even longer. My husband is so good about doing nothing on the weekends. And I'm like the annoying wife that's like, are you going to do something productive? You know, like I'm so annoyed with him that he's not doing stuff, you know, and he's so good at just relaxing. I'm like, I need to be better at that. I don't know about you guys, but in our house, we are constantly in a competition between who is busier and who is more tired. Constantly. I'm like, can we just all agree that we're all tired and we're all busy? This does not need to be a race to the bottom. We're all tired, we're all busy. So instead of maxing out every race, wearing our work ethic like a badge of honor, we've got to be able to shift and pivot and move to methodical marathon planning with a focus on durability and self-care. There's an amazing study out of Gartner that talks about proactive rest. So often we're told that rest is something that we need to earn. Anybody feel like that? Yeah. You got to be like dead on the floor before you actually take a day off, before you actually take a nap or a minute for yourself. We think we have to earn rest. We think it's something that we can only do when we're absolutely exhausted. But this study talks about how rest should be incorporated into our days, into our weeks, so that it's something that we do to prevent exhaustion and burnout in the first place. And when we do, people that take proactive rest have a 26% increase in their performance. So what does this look like? Proactive rest can take a lot of different forms. This could be as simple as having 50-minute meetings instead of 60. Because let's be real, like there is always some moron asking questions at the end of that meeting that you're like, dude, we already went over this, all right? I thought we were getting done 10 minutes early and you just messed it up for everyone. So annoying, right? Give your people those 10 minutes back to run to the restroom, get a coffee, get some like sunshine on their face. Or it could be something I did on my team was meeting-free Fridays. So maybe, let me know if this sounds familiar. You're working all week, you're in meeting after meeting, call after call after call after call after call. You get to Friday and you're like, I haven't actually done any work. I haven't done any of the crap that needs to be done because I've been on calls or in meetings all week. And so then you go into your weekend with all this stress and pressure on your shoulders and come back on Monday and now you're like, oh my God, now I have even more to deal with. So I wanted to give my team a little bit of that time back. Go spend Friday doing the work, catching up from the week, so that you could go into your weekend with a little less stress. Another one of my favorite ways to incorporate proactive rest is to just turn the music off in your car. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I grew up doing musical theater. I love to sing. So my car is my own personal recording studio. Yes. So I'm not talking about like road trips. By all means, blast that music, sing at the top of your lungs, have fun. I'm talking about these small, short little trips we take throughout our weeks. Going to the grocery store, the dry cleaner, the post office, the school drop-off, the gym. Those little trips that are 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. Turn the music off. Because if you're an overachiever like me, you think, oh, I'm in the car for 10 minutes, I should be listening to a podcast. I should be listening to an audiobook. I need to make sure I'm being productive right now. No, turn the music off. It's gonna feel awkward at first. It already feels awkward in here, right? Yeah. Just turn the music off. We are so bombarded with so much noise. Emails, text messages, notifications, pings, WhatsApp, all the things. Just allowing ourselves that moment of quiet resets our nervous system and makes us feel better. And what you'll notice is solutions to problems will start bubbling up that maybe you've struggled to find answers to because you're giving yourself a minute to actually just be quiet. When I was at the depths of my burnout, I looked at recovering from my burnout as the next thing I was going to accomplish. Because God forbid I didn't achieve something during this moment of darkness for me. I learned how to do transcendental meditation and meditated twice a day. I was getting facials and massages. I was going to acupuncture twice a week. I was getting those nutritional IVs. I mean, like such a Southern California cliche, right? I got you. But I was like, hey, if it works, sign me up. I was seeing every doctor under the sun, taking all of the supplements, doing all the things. My schedule was so jam-packed with every recovery tool I could think of. I was like, am I relaxed yet? And needless to say, I wasn't. I actually had to just start taking things off my schedule. I could not work my way out of burnout. I had to just do less. One of my favorite quotes is by Coco Chanel, the famous French fashion designer. She says, before you leave the house, take one thing off. She's talking about dressing with accessories, her point obviously being less is more. I say, before you start your week, take one thing off. Can you look at your schedule on a Sunday and take one thing off your calendar? Maybe this is the week that your kids carpool to soccer practice with someone else. Maybe there's a meeting that could actually just be an email. And let's be real, there's a lot of those. Maybe you've already got plans 3 nights this week and it's stressing you out already on Sunday. Reschedule one of those. Or better yet, just cancel. Just cancel the plans. Just cancel. I am giving you permission to cancel the plans. We do not have to show up everywhere, because if we show up for everyone else, we are not ever going to show up for ourselves. Thank you. I'm preaching up here today. We've got to be able to commit to less so that we can show up more. How many of you have started a diet or a new exercise regime and you're like, I'm going to work out for an hour, 7 days a week, and you do it for like 2 days, and then you're done. You're over it. No, commit to less. Commit to 10-minute workouts and show up more. Do them every day, and eventually you can build off that. We can incorporate this in any area of our life. So there's one more set of tools that I want to, struggling over here. Here we go. There's one more set of tools that I want to leave you with before we wrap up here today. It's my mental health toolkit. Think of this as your mental health Swiss Army knife, something that you can use anytime you feel that flutter of exhaustion or burnout, because let's be real, we work in stressful jobs. We have stressful lives. We are pulled in a lot of directions. We live in a society that actually rewards burning out, that rewards burning the candle at both ends. So how do we cultivate this toolkit to help us mitigate that? And the first one is movement. Now, I specifically don't call this exercise because that just feels like a lot of work, right? Yeah, feels like a lot of work. So just get some movement in. That could be walking your dog, that could be jumping on the trampoline with your kids, or it could be some hardcore like HIIT, Peloton, CrossFit workout, whatever rocks your world. Excuse me. Get some movement in, get those endorphins flowing. The next one's joy. What are those things, those small little moments of joy throughout your day or your week? One of mine is that first cup of coffee in the morning. I just have that kind of cheap coffee, Mr. Coffee, $12 Mr. Coffee maker from Target. Like nothing fancy here, folks. But I love it. It like gurgles away in my kitchen, makes my whole house smell like coffee. I love it. I like savor that moment in the morning. Another one of my favorite things to do is to call my parents during happy hour. So my parents have been married for 53 years. I am convinced that them having happy hour every night is the key to their marriage. They're just drunk every night. It's amazing how much more tolerable people are, right? So they used to have happy hour at 5, but during the pandemic, they moved it up to 4 because what the hell else were they doing? And my mom's new mantra is, if it's 4, it's time to pour. Which I just love. I'm like, now that is something I can get behind, right? So I call them sometimes during happy hour. I know my dad's having a martini, my mom's having a glass of wine. I can see in my head where they're sitting at the table in the kitchen, and they just crack me up. What are those little moments of joy in your life? How can you incorporate more of those in your life? They will light you up and make you happy and make you smile. The next one is to connect. Who are those people in your life that just make you feel good? One of my best friends is a girl named Jelaine. We went to high school together, and she actually lives really close to me in San Diego. And I love her. Every time I talk to her on the phone or I hang out with her in person, she makes me laugh, she makes me feel better, and I leave that engagement or that call just feeling better about myself, feeling happier, feeling like I've got a smile on my face. We laughed about something. Who are those people in your life that make you feel good? How can you reach out to them? How can you connect with them? How can you make time for them? These don't have to be, 3-hour happy hours. Call them for 10 minutes on your way to the grocery store. 10 minutes is better than nothing. Make time to reach out to them because these are the people that fill our cups up. The next one is to celebrate. What have you already accomplished in your life? I know you would not be sitting in this room today if you haven't accomplished some incredible stuff already in your life. But also, what have you already endured? We have all fought so many battles that most people don't see. What have you already endured? What have you already accomplished? How can you take a little mental victory lap and celebrate the progress you've made, celebrate what you've already done and endured? The next one's community. You guys have the most incredible community here already. Look at all of these beautiful women. Give yourselves a hand, by the way. You are all so incredible for being here, taking time out of your day. You've already got this beautiful community of motivated, driven women. But I also know you guys are probably into some weird stuff as well. And the reality is you can find anything on the internet. You can find any group interested in whatever weird stuff you're into on the internet. I know when I first started speaking, my husband thought I was having a midlife crisis. My parents thought I was nuts to quit my really good corporate job to go be a speaker. And it wasn't until I found an incredible group of speakers that I was like, oh my gosh, yes, these are my people. Finally, somebody gets why I like this and why I enjoy it. So how can you reach out and find your people? If you haven't found them yet, I promise they are out there. Keep looking. And if you already have found them, how can you engage and connect with them? Is there a Zoom you can join, a meetup? Is there an in-person event? Is there one person you can just connect with? Create and cultivate that community. It will bring you so much joy. The next one's laugh. I feel like this is self-explanatory. I feel like this is so self-explanatory. We love to laugh. Is there anything better than just laughing so hard that your cheeks hurt, your stomach hurts, maybe you even pee a little bit? Like, it just is so much fun. It releases those endorphins. It feels so good. How can we incorporate more laughter into our lives? And then the next one's vision. What's that vision for your life? So often we get on this treadmill, this rat race, this hamster wheel of just doing. And we forget why we're even doing all this. Why are we working so hard? What is that vision of our life? And if you are crafty, by all means, create that Pinterest-worthy vision board. That's not my jam. I just like to pick a song that I like, that makes me feel good, and for the 3 minutes that that song is playing, just envision the life that you want to live. What do you look like? How do you feel? What are you wearing? Where are you shopping? Where are you going on vacation? What's your house look like? What's your career like? How much money do you have? What are your investments? Think through all of those different things. What is that vision for your life? Because if we don't know where we're going, we will never know if we get there. But also, we just lose track of why we're working so hard and why we're doing all this stuff. We need to remind ourselves regularly why we are making this much effort. And then the last one is to give. How can we give our time, our talent, and our money to things that we care about? And I know you guys are here, and this is such an incredible fundraiser, so you are already giving. But what else can you do? How can you incorporate giving into your day? Because as that Stanford study showed, we feel better when we're helping people. Not only does it help them, it helps us. So how can we give a little bit more of our time, of our talents, or our money to make a difference in somebody's life? Think of these as your mental health Swiss Army knife. One of them on their own is not going to solve all your problems, unfortunately. Just like diet and exercise, we have got to make small incremental changes. We got to take the stairs, we got to drink the water, we got to have the salad instead of the fries. All of those things add up to making us healthier people. The same is true with preventing and overcoming burnout. All of these little tools and tactics are part of your arsenal. Use whatever works for you. You don't have to use all of them. Pick and choose what works for you and incorporate your own into it. And I'd love to know, what's in your mental health toolkit? What are some of the things that you do in your life, your day, your weeks that make you feel good, that give you a little boost? I'd love to know. Anybody? Drink. Drink. I hear you. Drink, okay. She's honest. How many can relate? I'm a Sauvignon Blanc girl myself. Dancing! Yes, I love a dance break. It's also good exercise and good cardio to just rock out. I'm particularly fond of Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I feel like that's a really good song to do as a dance break. What else? Being thankful, yes. Having a gratitude or appreciation practice. Love that. Painting, going outside, nature. Hanging out with your dog. Oh, I just lost my dog recently, and dogs are literally the best medicine on the planet. They really are. The beach, prayer, yes, singing. Oh, I love to sing. Karaoke. I will karaoke till the cows come home. These are all great tools, and I encourage you to take some of the ones I have up here to create your own, incorporate these into your life, because they all add up to making us happier and helping us feel better. We have to realize that this pause, it's not permanent. Just because we slow down doesn't mean we're failing. We've got to slow down in order to get ahead. Even the world's greatest athletes understand this and make rest a part of their training routines. Whew. We've been through a lot here, folks, in the last 50 minutes. Lots of information, lots of tools. We talked about decoding our flow, streamlining cumbersome, old, outdated processes. We talked about pivoting like a pro, moving with agility to make sure that the road that we're on is a road we actually still want to be on, one that's still bringing us joy. And lastly, we talked about slowing down to speed up and cultivating that mental health toolkit, creating that toolkit to help us prevent and overcome burnout. Whew. But there's one more thing I want to talk about. I didn't say we were going to talk about this when we started, but I feel like I can't leave here today without sharing this with you. And that is, if you are the person that was like me, that thought burnout's never going to happen, I'm too good for that, too cool for school, it's never gonna happen to me, I can outlive this, it's all garbage. Maybe think about what's at stake if we don't address burnout. What are the costs at stake if we don't address burnout? One thing I didn't mention was at the depths of my burnout, when all of that other stuff was happening, my husband and I were also on a gut-wrenching 4-year parenthood journey. We had been through multiple rounds of IVF, multiple miscarriages, multiple failed transfers. We lost 25 embryos during this process. It was devastating. And it took such a toll on my physical and mental health, but also on our relationship. And I can't say for certain that my burnout was to blame, but my gut tells me it was because all of our tests always came back totally normal. And I don't know what's at stake for you. I don't know what's at stake for you. I don't know what silent battles you are fighting, what addictions you are hiding, what life you are living to make somebody else happy, the hopes and dreams that you just keep ignoring and pushing down. But my hope is that after what we've talked about here today, you never get there. You don't have to suffer some horrible life event before we start making these changes, before you start putting yourself first, before you start making the shifts necessary to lead the life that excites you, that gets you fired up, that makes you want to thrive instead of shut down. This constant push for more, it is not ambition, it's an addiction. We are addicted to that feeling of doing and achieving and accomplishing and being needed, and our egos are so at play in this. So how can we take the tools that we've learned today and put them into practice? Because I know that you have a desire to live a life that is fulfilling both personally and professionally. I know that you have it in you to make some of these changes. I know that we can all do something today to put ourselves first. And my hope is that you never have to go through what I went through before you come to that realization. So I don't know where you're gonna be when you get to that mouse jiggle moment. Whether it's diving in that pool like I was at the state championship, or whether it's leading 100 Zoom calls or making that pitch to that game-changing client. But I hope that you can realize in those moments when the stakes are high that you've got the tools to get through it, that you have got the time, you've got the talent, you've got the energy. You now have a whole toolkit in your tool belt and a roadmap to use to get you there. I am excited for you. I am excited for us. The time for action is now, ladies. It is time to burn bright, not out. Thank you. Thank you.